Steelers.
Pittsburgh do this all the time. I've been playing them for 13 years. When you avoid the middle, they go into the middle. It's never changed.
Man, every time I see that opening, it fires me up, especially when we see Heinz Field as empty as it was without fans in the first time around. It was kind of sickening. But Steeler Nation will soon get there. I'd like to welcome you all back to the Steel City Sermon. This is the 12th edition or 12th episode of Steel City Sermon presented by Blitzalytics.com. I am your host, Mr. Roy Countryman, or also on Twitter at PreacherBoyRoy. We're going to go ahead and jump right into the episode here. We're going to jump into the prelude portion. And the first things first is we got to give some thoughts about the victory over the Broncos. It wasn't pretty. Second half especially. I was sitting on some pins and needles going throughout some of the plays there, but we made just enough plays to win it. Made some timely conversions when we needed to. And I think that really would have been a game maybe last year if we would have had Rudolph or Hodge under center that we probably would have lost. But having that Hall of Fame quarterback under center kind of makes a difference, and that's the games going from an 8-8 team that'll be maybe a 10-6 or 11-5 sort of start to the season here. So let's go ahead and jump in. Some of the other thoughts here. Too many penalties. Come on, Steelers. I think this has kind of been harped on all week, especially if you listen to the major radio stations around here and a lot of other people that's been reviewing this game. They had 10 penalties for almost 90 yards. I believe it was 89 yards total. A lot of them, I know there's at least 3 that's been on Minkah Fitzpatrick, which we'll get to him here in a minute, but too many penalties. Sloppy game. The officials seemed to be a little flag happy at times after the first couple weeks of letting the players play. They were having some, issues of not wanting them to be physical throughout the route, and some pass interference calls. Maybe got called, and that in prior weeks maybe they kept the flags in their pockets. So sometimes you live and die by that, but still, the 10 penalties for almost 90 yards, you're not going to win those types of games consistently if you go throughout the stretch here. But that's the first thing. The other thing is we're the only team in the NFL to have 2 100-yard rushers. Okay, yeah, you can maybe nix that for maybe James Conner. He did have 106 yards on 16 carries and a touchdown last week against the Broncos. And if you really look throughout the game, it was probably majority of that came on 3 runs. But hey, a 100-yard game's a 100-yard game. Same way with Benny Snell. We had 2 different rushers for 100 yards. So I think that's going to work itself out throughout the season. Benny Snell fumbled. That was a heartbreaker, and I think that's really going to put him somewhat in the Tomlin doghouse. But you can see he does have a future here, probably as a 60-40 back, maybe with McFarland next year, which we'll get to that conversation a little later as well. But James Conner, tip of the cap to you, man. You got 100 yards. It's on you. We're the only team in the NFL to have 200-yard rushers this season. Also, the freak, Mapletron, gone for 88 yards, mostly on 1 catch, but an absolute beauty. Be able to just pluck that pass out of the air on a deep ball. Actually seeing Ben uncork one, it was nice to see that arm strength back in full force there. So 84-yard touchdown for him on that one. It's a thing of beauty. I can't wait to see how that relationship evolves down the stretch here. But Chase Claypool, not only that, but man, you play special teams like your hair is on fire, man. You are a kamikaze flying down the field on kick returns and also on punt returns. So that's a welcome sight to see, that type of invigoration, even out of our first pick this year, even though he wasn't a first rounder. Really biding his time well in special teams and making the most of his small amount of snaps on offense. So I think you're going to see that continually percolate up and the arrow point upwards throughout the season to see Claypool get more time on the offense, as well as continually being a difference maker on special teams. So Chase Claypool beasting and just let it keep happening, guys. Steeler Nation, we're in for a treat the rest of the season. The other guy in our draft class. Boy, Kevin Colbert's really checking the boxes for these picks, and that's the first guy not to get invited to the combine. Kevin Dotson, first career NFL start at right guard, taking over David DeCastro. Pretty much held his own and kept Jarrell Casey in check last week. It was one of the guys I highlighted in our matchups to watch, and it was pretty cool to see that he actually got the game ball from Big Ben to give to his dad, who was a diehard Steeler fan through and through, passed that on to Kevin, and it was cool to see them give him the game ball for his first start for basically helping keeping Ben clean, and one of the reasons why they got the 100 yards rushing and over that amount. So Kevin Dotson, you really impressed me in your first weeks and first start here. Your first week's worth of action when you had to fill in for Wisniewski, but then your first start just was even better. So arrow's definitely pointing up for you. We have a really good talent here to be looking forward, maybe for 2020, which we'll get into that conversation, or 2021, excuse me, coming forward here in the sermon portion of this. But impressive effort filling in for an all-pro type talent in David DeCastro. So well warranted, you got the game ball. Next, we got to talk about our defense. First of all, let me just read you a couple stats off of how amazing this defense has been through 2 weeks. Our run defense, and this is from Ben Fennell, one of the guys I follow on Twitter. He's a really good guy for statistics. Our run defense, 66.5 yards per game, fewest in the NFL. 2.89 yards per carry, fewest in the NFL. Fewest yards before contact in the NFL. Second fewest yards after contact in the NFL. And this is one that was very impressive, especially if you watch the Giants game. 12 negative runs forced, second most in the NFL. So our run defense is staggering. Now let me read you some of our pass rush stats from NFL's Next Gen Stats. The Steelers' defense has been generating pressure with very blitz-heavy scheme, which we can all agree. You see Mike Hilton flying all around, our edge rushers, interior defensive linemen. The unit ranks first in the NFL in pressure rate at 45.6% and blitz rate at 57.8%. Oh, and by the way, this game against the Broncos, they had 19 quarterback hits. We are getting close, even if we're not getting staggering amount of stacks. We're getting pressure. We're getting people uncomfortable. Outstanding, and that's going to lead me to this guy, the AFC Defensive Player of the Week, and I really think just the tip of the iceberg for this season. You know, I made the statement before that TJ Watt's going to break the all-time single-season sack record, and I stand by that statement. This is the first week of many of these, I think, this year. He was named AFC Defensive Player of the Week for 2.5 sacks against the Broncos, 4 quarterback hits, and 4 tackles, playing like somebody possessed out there on the edge, especially opposite Bud Dupree, who's been playing out of his mind. We'll talk about him here in a little bit once we get to the sermon portion of it. TJ Watt, absolutely beastin'. Love this guy, especially the way this week the storyline with the Watt brothers all playing together. It's going to be interesting to see if he can upend his brother JJ, who's been, you know, the defensive player of the year quite a few many times. So maybe this will be the changing of the guard per se, the first game in that sorts. Also, Tyson Alu. If you have yet to see this, I'm sorry, Javon Hargrave. I love you. I think I said this last week, but this dude's playing like an animal. Every time I see him play, he reminds me of the character Maui. He just looks like he is so huge, just dominating people. Muscles all over the place, just ridiculous, both in run defense, also as a pass rusher. He had 5 tackles, a sack, 2 tackles for loss, quarterback hit, and he got his big bear claws up in the throwing lanes for 2 pass defenses as well. Tyson Alu was a little worried because he had a little bit of a knee twinge or a bone bruise early in the week. He missed a little bit of practice time, but he was wound up being able to full practice the rest of the week. But that guy, if he can keep up this type of rate, our defensive front, oh my goodness. Look out, Steeler Nation. Look out. Also, another unheralded player that maybe doesn't get the credit he should. Vince Williams. Vinny DeVici, 98, man. If you don't follow him on Twitter, he's a cool follow. He's a funny guy. He's been a monster, especially in run defense and being his blitzing style. He leads the NFL in tackles for loss throughout the first 2 weeks with 6 tackles for loss, which is 3 more than any other player in the NFL. His 6 tackles for loss are the most after the first 2 weeks of a season since J.J. Watt had 7 to open up the 2015 season. So he's in rarefied air here with his penetrating style and be able to bring the ball carrier back in the backfield. So keep up the good work, Vince Williams. We've seen the impressive climb already of Devin Bush in his second year, and now he has a guy like that that's playing so well beside him. Outstanding work for the Steelers defense. Oh, yeah, and by the way, Mike Hilton might have had his best game as a Steeler, which he's one of my favorite players to watch just because of his innate ability to time up blitzes. It reminds me, he's not the same player, but just that instincts is Polamalu-esque, the way he can time things up off the snap and be there in an instant. He had 8 tackles, a sack, 2 tackles for loss, a pass defense, and he hit the quarterback twice. So that's an all-around game for a nickel corner or slot corner. Absolutely awesome stuff there. Also, a tip of the cap for a guy that gets a lot of flack for Steeler Nation, Terrell Edmunds. I know it was a wide open and a missed block, but still, you came down with the sack to seal the game and really help us for that victory last week. So Terrell Edmunds, good stuff. You made a game-changing play. Even if it might have been a layup, you still had to make the play. So feel good about yourself. Keep building on that going forward. I also have to eat a little crow here, guys, for the sermon people here. Deontay Johnson, you made me eat my words. I was calling for Ray McLeod to replace you here on punt returns. Then you absolutely awed all of us with your elusiveness on that punt return that got called back. I'm going to eat my words, but I am going to challenge you because this did work for your punt returns last week. You made me eat my words, but it's time to call out the security of your hands. How sure are your hands, Deontay? You have been targeted 23 times, which is the second most in all the NFL, only to Nuck Hopkins out there in Arizona at 25. You had 23, excuse me. But you are only able to bring down 14 of those 23 targets. So that leaves your catch percentage at a 60.8. I'm not saying it's bad, but we could bump that up, and I want to see your numbers after that. Just for comparison's sake, Juju this year has caught 13 of 14, which is close to 93%. Just saying, Deontay. So maybe a little bit of an apology from me because you did show me up as a punt returner, but let's see if this works now. I'm calling you out as a receiver. If you get a target at you, buddy, bring it in. Let's see it take it the whole way home here. Take it to pay dirt. I know you got it in you. You're so explosive after the catch. I love seeing it. Love that punt return. You just seem to have way more confidence this second week. I don't know if it was first week jitters, but you did make me eat a little crow. So I gotta take it while I have, but yet still challenge you a little bit. Let's see you secure the ball a little bit more regularly here. So that's all we have for my thoughts on the first victory. The next thing I want to kind of talk about here in our prelude portion is Big Ben. You're really seeing the maturity of Ben and really seeing him not take things for granted after having a season off. And it struck me as kind of, I don't want to say odd, but early in his career, I didn't think we would see this kind of dedication to the craft that he had. You're starting to see him evolve like a Breeze, a Brady, some of these guys that play so long that they know that maybe they don't have the physical capabilities as they did before, but their mind is getting sharper. So he spent his off day, which if you don't know, most times early in the week, the first practice of the week, Mike Tomlin manages reps. He mostly lets young guys get a lot of the first team reps just to be able to get them more familiar and give his veterans a little bit of a break, especially if they win the previous week. Big Ben's one of those players. Also Marquise Pouncey, Cam Hayward. I know Stephon Tuitt has had at times. He's done this throughout his duration as being coach. Heath Miller, James Harrison, other players of that ilk that are the elite of the elite on our roster. He gives them a little break early in the week, gives them their key reps before the game on the walkthroughs and whatnot. But he spent his off day not completely off. He was fine-tuning his footwork, his throwing mechanics, and a lot of preparation type things with quarterback coach Matt Canada, because he even made the statement that said, I've gotten away with it in the past, being able to not necessarily be perfect from the ground up and just letting my arm kind of make up for a lot of things. A lot of imperfections if you talk to the quarterback people. So Steeler Nation, this is a good thing. He's talking about wanting to play maybe 2-3 more years. And now not only is his physical capability there, but now his mind is matching that with the preparation. He knows maybe my arm isn't 100%, but it's 90%, but I can make up that 10% difference with my preparation. So this is only good news for any Steeler fan going forward. And you don't want to see him get hurt and have to miss the time, but this is where you're seeing the evolution of this quarterback in the final phases of his career, where we're going to only benefit from it. It's almost a John Elway-esque rise in the back nine of his career, but it ends like this. I'll just say this. This is how he ended that conversation. I forget where it came from, but if I'm having these issues and we are still winning football games, that's a plus. So last week, we won a game without him being perfect. There's going to be games, especially maybe in the playoffs, he's going to have to be near perfect for us to win. And that's going to be nice to have, especially with him taking preparation this early in the season. So that's a little change up for me. I wasn't expecting that out of Big Ben. I figured he'd just take his day off and rest when he can. But no, he's really, this is the revenge tour for Big Ben. I think he's really trying to make a name and say, I'm one of the best quarterbacks who's played in the last 1 to 2 decades here that he's been in the football. Another guy, and I mentioned him here just a little bit earlier, Minkah Fitzpatrick. Huge addition last year. I'm not going to cut him down for that whatsoever. He's played okay, but I'm putting you on notice, Minkah. Last game against Denver, they were targeting you, and you kind of been shaky. You've been solid to average right now in the first 2 appearances. 3 of the 10 penalties, though, in the last game were on you. 2 pass interference penalties, which we know sometimes can be ticky-tack, but you had 2 pass interference penalties and 1 horse collar tackle. That's some big-time yardage right there that you were called for. Also, your tackling has not been that impressive, especially the mechanics of the way you've been aggressively flying downhill. We need to ratchet up the intensity there and get the ball carrier down to the ground at a higher rate of success. And we need your playmaking ability, man. I know our pressure has been there, but that pressure now, we should be getting some turnovers. And I'm calling you out here on this, and I know, it might not be all on your shoulders, but we need you to come up with some INTs or maybe a forced fumble like last year. And we need some more turnovers from you, especially on the back end, especially like a guy like Deshaun Watson who can make some, awe-inspiring throws. Let's not, be sitting on our laurels. Let's go out and make some plays. So, Minkah, don't want to throw you completely under the bus, but just like Deontay, I'm calling you out. I want you to make some plays this week. Finally, here in the prelude portion is congratulations, Hall of Honorees. The selections of the 2020 class has been put out. Some of the best players of the last generation, and also some of the all-time greats that maybe didn't get their due, are a part of this class. Like Dwight White, one of the forgotten members of the Steel Curtain, absolute menace. The game where he came back from having, I believe it was pneumonia, to start in a Super Bowl against the Vikings, one of the all-time best performances ever. Dwight White, Mike Wagner, awesome player. Not many people know about him. Go look him up. You'll be ecstatic to find that player and his stats. Very unheralded player. Also, Greg Lloyd. If you think James Harrison was scary, Greg Lloyd was the originator of scary as an outside linebacker in the Steelers' Blitzburg defense. That dude wanted to hurt somebody, and he looked like it too. So Greg Lloyd was a menace. And then 2 of my favorite players, Potsy, James Ferrier, the captain of the Steelers defense, one of the all-time great defenses in NFL history in 2008. One of probably the best free agent signings the Steelers have ever made, up there with Jeff Hardings and Ryan Clark, and if you want to consider Joe Hayden one, even though he's cut. James Ferrier was played out of position with the Jets. He was a first-round pick. When he came to the Steelers, he put up tackling number after tackling number, made interceptions, secure tackler. He was a very good communicator, just an absolute force. So James Ferrier definitely warranted there. And then none other than, the guy behind me here, I got to mention it. It's Mr. Troy Polamalu, and this guy is also one of the honorees this year. I'm not so sure he's going to show up. There was an article that came out this week, I believe, from Mark Cabali, trying to say his statements about why he's been away from the Steelers. It isn't no hard feelings. If you have the opportunity, go check out The Athletic. It's definitely worth a read right there for some of their Steelers content as well. But Troy Polamalu was selected for the Hall of Honor this year. So all warranted members. Congratulations, you guys. Well warranted. And we're going to move on here. We're going to move on to the sermon portion now. And the sermon portion of this is something, I was kind of struggling this week. How do I want to approach some stuff? And I was looking at my calendar. We all know our country is going through an election year, which whatever side you're on, I'm not here to talk politics, but it made me kind of take a look at something with a 2021 free agency class. And the presidential debate is going to be taking place, the first one here on the 29th of September. So I was going to say, why don't we take our free agents and kind of mass them in an election, a mock election where you have, the incumbent, which is the player, it's already at this position, or the candidate to replace them, if there is one. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. The 2021 class, first of all, I got to throw it out there, and we're not sure what the salary cap is going to look like. Right now, speculation is, and all the general managers have been made aware that to work from a $175 million baseline to say the cap would not fall past there. If that's the case, the Steelers are already we're in some trouble at, I believe, around like 20-some million already over. 20-some million over the cap for next year. But I think till the actual offseason time, that number is going to be closer to what last year's salary cap was, if not slightly higher. Last year's cap was, I believe, 198.6 or 198.4 million. It was somewhere in that range. We are well within reason. I believe we have $9 million in cap right now. We can also roll over cap from this year if we don't use it, if we have no injuries and want to roll that into next year. We can offset some of that difference already. If not, I believe it's going to be around that 198. That's just my personal opinion, because when you look at the full-scale TV deals that are going to be coming in, because a lot of them are up in 2021, they're going to want to re-up them early in 2022. All the TV deals are up. They'll want to re-up them and renegotiate them by early 2021, which will probably put you around a January, February, March. It should be right around, you'll probably know the figure, the new TV deals before the salary cap number is given. And if it's large deals, which I believe Fox is already negotiating for around, I believe, like a $2 billion deal just for their games, I don't think we're going to see the drop that a lot of people are saying. I know they warned everybody to work from a number at 175 million, but I believe some of the owners are already kind of read in and know that the large, very large TV deal numbers will be in here to kind of offset some of the loss here. That's why I believe in this year we'll just say that the cap is the exact same as the year before. That way we don't have to make an argument of is it going lower. If it is, I believe it'll be right around the 190 to 198 area. I'm just going to say that because that's my opinion of what the cap is going to be for 2021. First guy up, our incumbent, Tyson Alualu, the nose tackle this year. He'll be 33. He's 33 right now. I believe he'll be 34 at the time of free agency. This year's salary he's been playing on is $3.625 million. Is he worth it? An electoral debate. I'm sure he can make a case that we can keep him, especially since he seems like he's a nice vintage wine. And I think he's getting better with age, especially with the amount of snaps that he's going to be playing. That nose tackle position doesn't play 60% of the snaps anymore. It only plays, I believe, 40 to 48%. This guy is just, he can also play defensive end. He has made mind-blowing success this year through 2 games. I think he loves playing in Pittsburgh. He's a former first-round pick, and you're really starting to see that flash now. The candidate to go against him and pose is the second-string Isaiah Buggs. We lost Daniel McCullers now to the Chicago Bears after they had an injury. They plucked him off our practice squad, which at this point it's already been 7 years in the league, 6-7 years in the league for Big Dan. I don't think he had a long-term plan here, and I don't think this defense is looking for a natural nose tackle anymore. They want a guy who can play both as a nose tackle and as a defensive end interior pass rusher on passing down. So Tyson Alualu is a perfect guy for that position. He has the strength to hold up against double teams. Isaiah Buggs has made some impressive gains with his lower body strength, as well as his two-gapping ability on a couple of plays you've already seen here. So I think they're going to target Alualu for a short-term 2-year deal. It's not going to break the bank. I think you're going to see the incumbent keep this seat on the Steelers roster for 2021, as well as seeing the continual development and progression of Isaiah Buggs. But Alualu will be the nose tackle, I believe, in 2021. Next player up here, Cam Sutton. He is the incumbent. What position is he, though? He plays nickel corner, But this year he's played more than anything on dime packages, free safety or split safety that's been up top with Minka. And he's very assignment sound. He's very good tackler, very good pursuit angles. He's a smart player. He's heady. He's opportunistic when it comes to time to making turnovers. So this is a guy I'm very intrigued to try to keep, especially because I think you can get him at a cheaper deal than maybe the other guy that's on this list. And that's the opposition or the candidate to replace him would be Mike Hilton. And he's another guy that's on our 2021 list. So this is one where we really don't have a guy to replace him flat out. I think it comes down finally to you're going to make a choice who you're going to re-sign, either Cam Sutton or Mike Hilton. And I think it comes down to the salary cap. If they come in at a higher number, like I was saying here before, I think they're going to target an extension with Hilton. If you come back with a lower number, say closer to a 175 or a 180, you may target a Cam Sutton because he doesn't have the eye-popping numbers. He doesn't have the Rosenhaus representation that Mike Hilton does, which we know always leads to big money, and warranted because Mike Hilton is a very quality player. But I'm not sure that we can afford to pay him $9+ million, which is about the top of the cap for nickel corners in the NFL. So Cam Sutton is the incumbent, and I say we see him again in 2021. I say Cam Sutton will probably be our nickel corner in 2021 as we go forward here. Now, next player, Zach Banner, the right tackle who went down with the devastating knee injury. Right now, he was age 26. Excuse me, let me go back to Cam Sutton. He's 25 right now, and he's only playing for around $1 million. So that's what I'm saying, where you can get a small-term contract for maybe a lower AAV, which is an annual average value contract. I think you can maybe get that as a better value than a Mike Hilton deal. Might not be the higher quality player, but you might get decent production for the amount of money you're paying on that roster. Zach Banner, now let me get back to him. He is 26 years of age. His 2020 salary was from a restricted free agent tender that he signed, and that was at $1.75 million. The knee injury was devastating, Steeler Nation. I think we all can admit that. We've seen the hard work, and I believe the front office put him at the right tackle starting spot for a long-term vision to say that that was going to be his spot for 2021, and that they didn't want to put Chooks there for the only reason that they were grooming him to play left tackle next season. So we really don't have a candidate to replace here unless you're looking at a Jerron Jones from the XFL that's on the practice squad right now, or an Anthony Coyle, which I don't have a lot of faith in them. Jerron Jones is intriguing, but he's already 26 years of age. I really see that this is a necessity. I think this is two parties that are going to make it. I don't see they're in opposition in this election. I believe that the incumbent will take this seat in the 2021 roster, and he'll be the starting right tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I believe this is a place where we can also get another value deal and give him maybe a 2-year deal where it has some sort of incentives based on playing time and percentage of snaps. That way he's winning some of the money back he may have lost after winning the starting spot this year and then ultimately succumbing to injury. So Zach Banner will be the incumbent keeping that. Now, this is an intriguing candidate here that we're talking about. The incumbent left guard, Matt Filer. He is 28 years of age. This year, playing on a restricted free agent tender tag, is making $3.26 million. He is a high-quality guard. He's been already impressive for his few starts here at left guard after transitioning from right tackle, who was very undersold as a right tackle the last 2 seasons before as he replaced Chris Hubbard. But after seeing the appearance of Kevin Dotson at right guard, I believe that Kevin Dotson will be the candidate to replace him in 2021. So you're going to be in a conundrum. Do you pay a guy that's worked his way off of practice squads from the Houston Texans to the Steelers, and then finally to a starting right tackle position, and then transition now to guard, which I believe is his best spot in the offensive line? But is he willing to take a deal of maybe a mid-range starter where if you put him in the open market, Matt Filer will get paid, especially if he plays well down the stretch here? You already have a guy like Kevin Dotson waiting in the wings. You're not moving David DeCastro from right guard. As long as he's staying healthy, he will be there. He's like Marquise Pouncey. They're both the anchors of this offensive line. Kevin Dotson, I believe, is the left guard of the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers after watching that performance against the Denver Broncos. And it hurts me to say this, but Matt Filer, I believe that you're losing your seat to the candidate in Kevin Dotson. I believe Matt Filer will be leaving as a free agent in the 2020 draft class. We'll see Kevin Dotson at left guard in 2021. The next one up here for candidacy, the incumbent, James Conner, the bell cow of our backfield. He is 25 years of age. He's only making around $1 million this year. But we all know the injury history. It is vast. Ankle, knee injuries. Continually never has played really a full 16-game season in his career. But when he is healthy, the flashes are there. He's made a Pro Bowl already in the season that he replaced Le'Veon Bell. He's a local kid. He went to Pitt. You all know the story. He beat cancer. But I am not sure and I'm not convinced that he will be the starter in 2021. The candidates to replace him is Benny Snell Jr. We've already seen the highlights this year of the improved figure with the 12-pound loss and the quickness. But also don't forget Anthony McFarland Jr. I know Mike Tomlin, since he's taken the reins as the Steelers head coach, that he has really been a one running back workhorse. But I believe that he's going to be transitioning that thought process to possibly a 60 to 40, 70 to 30 timeshare between the workhorse of Benny Snell and the the more explosive and quicker McFarland going into 2021. So James Conner, your seat will be usurped from you by the candidates of Benny Snell Jr. and Anthony McFarland Jr. I'm sorry, James Conner, but you'll be hitting the free agent class, and we will not be renewing you for 4 more years in Pittsburgh. Next up, and this one's going to really hurt me to talk about here, that's Alejandro Villanueva. But Alejandro Villanueva, the first 2 weeks you've been up and down, which is the way I could describe you last season as well. You've been uneven in your performances, but solid all around. Few games you'll give up some pressures due to some power rushers getting underneath your pads and walking you back, as well as struggling to maybe protect the corner for the more explosive get-offs. But your hand placement has improved. Your strength as a run blocker has improved. And your feet has also improved as you've aged. You'll be 32 years of age at this point. You're making $8.39 million, and simply I'm just not sure we can fit that cap space for the next contract that you'll be looking for. But I'm more convinced now more than ever that I'm not sure that you want to play past your early 30s as an NFL player. Knowing that you have a doctorate, knowing that you are a veteran and a war hero, which we thank you for in Pittsburgh, I'm not sure, especially with the comments made by David DeCastro earlier in this offseason, saying that possibly you might retire. I'm not so sure that you're not going to run for political office yourself one day because of your ideals and your background, that you wouldn't have a bigger impact in that facet in your life than playing into your mid to late 30s on an NFL field. I think you want more than the NFL in your career. And as a man, I think you're destined for that. So I'm not so sure that we're going to have to make a decision to the point where you will even have to give you a contract. I think you'll be retiring after this season, especially if we hoist that 7th Lombardi at the end of the year. I believe you'll ride off into the sunset into the next phase of your career. So Alejandro Villanueva, your only candidate to replace you right now is Chuks Okorafor. Excuse me. And Chuks Okorafor I've been very impressed with. Last game against the Broncos, the foot quickness is there. And I think long term that's what the front office wanted. And that's why they placed Banner at right tackle. They were both evenly matched up throughout training camp at Heinz Field. And they wanted to give Banner a chance to acclimate himself there. So what do we want to see here? I think Alejandro will be moving on, and Chuks Okorafor will be our left tackle going into the 2021 season. But I would not be surprised to see the Steelers target an offensive lineman early in the draft within the first 3 rounds due to some of these players now finally falling off the wagon or moving on through free agency or retirement, as we see age starting to creep up now with some of like the center Marquise Pouncey, David DeCastro, Matt Filer moving on. We're starting to see some age creep in. So you're going to see a couple guys like that finally start to make their way out, but we still need to keep Ben upright in the last 9 of his career. Another one of these guys, Mike Hilton. Mike Hilton, I already talked about him a little bit. He's 26 years of age. He's $3.259 million this year. His only competition right now is Cam Sutton. That's the candidate to replace him, and as we already talked, Mike Hilton, I think I would love to have you long term, and if we see the cap stay around $198 million, I think they'll be one of the players that the front office throws a contract negotiation at you to try to keep you here. I think they'll try to keep you and Sutton both here because it keeps the versatility of our back seven intact. But I think you'll outprice yourself in the Steelers, and we'll ultimately see you leave Pittsburgh. So I believe the candidate in Cam Sutton will be replacing you. Now we move on to the two hardest players to talk about here, and this is what's been the hardest ones for me. This one is Bud Dupree, the edge rusher right now, opposite of T.J. Watt, who got the franchise tag last year. He is 27 years of age. He's making $15.828 million. And let me just throw you some stats already from the 2020 season. He has 12 hurries through 2 games, 12 quarterback hits, 4 knockdowns, and 14 pressures. He leads all edge rushers in pressure rate and quarterback hits through 2 weeks. That's playing like a guy that's taken the next step. But unfortunately, I'm not so sure we have the cap space to pay both you and the guy opposite you. I know unless there would be some way that you take some sort of discount, I believe the candidate to replace you and Alex Highsmith, who's also been impressive in his limited amount of snaps, has been absolutely impressive in his short amount of snaps. This guy, his get off is apparent. You can see he needs to add a little bit more strength to combat the offensive tackles, but I just simply cannot see or warrant paying 2 pass rushers. It'll have to be 16 plus million. And as you know, TJ Watt will be closer probably to 20 million, if not more, a season, as his stats warrant that. And I just simply do not see that getting a chance to be paid to you, bud. I'm sorry. I love your evolution as a pass rusher, as well as your explosive run-stopping ability, and it will be missed, especially by TJ. I know you and him play off each other so well. Finally is Juju Smith-Schuster, and this is the most up-and-down wild card of the entire 2021 free agency class. He's 23 years of age. I believe he'll be 24 at the time of free agency starting. He's only making $1.335 million this year. What do we do with Juju? Has he been this year? This year has been absolutely outstanding. I already told you, he caught 93% of his passes already, his few touchdown passes. He looks like the same guy that he was with Antonio Brown those first 2 seasons, putting up absolutely groundbreaking numbers. So, what do? I think this is going to be one of the ones where you see the franchise tag come out, if they plan on giving him a long-term extension. Because, as Jay asked in the questions here, what is going to happen? Who will get the franchise tag this year? Which Steeler will get it? I believe Juju Smith-Schuster is one of the only guys that you'll absolutely see it, and that's him. Only as a ploy, if we get that $198 million cap, to get a long-term extension done, because of his ability that he loves playing with Big Ben. Big Ben is a force whenever he has Juju Smith-Schuster. He is his go-to target. I don't care if he only plays 90% of his snaps in the slot. He looks to him, that is his guy. And if Ben is the one at charge, I think he'll be putting pressure on the front office as well to say, keep one of my guys that I love targeting. So, Juju Smith-Schuster, the incumbent, you'll be getting opposed by Chase Claypool and James Washington. Do those guys stand out? Yes. Do we have some embarrassment of riches as all the targets? Yes. But after we just seen them pay Cam Hayward, who else are they paying on offense right now? You have Marquise Pouncey. You have David DeCastro. You already paid Eric Ebron a slight amount, but it's only a 2-year deal. You're going to see them reward Juju, especially with his work ethic and his ability to keep things light, but also be able to keep it professional as well. And he is a leader in that young locker room. I think you'll see them reward him with a franchise tag. They wanted to see if he could stay healthy. He's going to stay healthy this season, Steeler Nation. You're going to see a big-time contract come his way. I'm not so sure he's going to get Julio Jones or Nuck Hopkins type money, but you might see him get Cooper Kupp type money. 16 to 18 million, somewhere around there, be a go-to target for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That'd be the contract I target if I was Kevin Colbert. to kind of get him secured to that contract. Cooper Kupp, a little bit more than that, or around that facet, or that kind of structure. That's what I'm going for if I'm Kevin Colbert. So, election year, we already know. Juju Smith-Schuster, the incumbent, stays. Bud Dupree goes. Mike Hilton goes. Villanueva goes. James Conner goes. We're going to have new blood here, Steeler Nation. Matt Filer goes. Zach Banner stays. Cam Sutton stays. And Alu stays. So we're going to have a lot of new blood in 2021, and I think it's going to be painful to see after some of these veterans leave. But it's going to have to be warranted because this is going to be a penny-pinching year. But I think we can keep some of our key members here. So, Steeler Nation, that was our sermon portion here. I'm going to get to a couple questions here we have in our chat. We have is it the Gotriots? When do you think the Steelers will win its next Super Bowl? Be realistic, or I won't take you seriously. Gotriots, I'm going to be serious with you. I think this year, not so much because Ben's back, but I've never seen a defense play this dominant. I was alive and watched football for the Ravens defense, and it was dominant. Our 2008 defense for the Steelers was quite dominant as well, with Casey Hampton, James Ferrier, Troy Polamalu, Ryan Clark, and etc., Ike Taylor. This team has a legit chance, if we stave away some injuries, to get a deep run. I really think this is the best year we have a chance because we have some guys on expiring contracts. That's why they'll be motivated to go forward. And I really think that it's a chance that we can see to make a deep run this year as long as we can beat the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens is going to be one of the hardest hitting games of this year, both games that we play them, and I think we'll see them late in the playoffs as well as the Kansas City Chiefs. We all know Patrick Mahomes. But if you look back in Steelers history the last 5 years, every time we've played the Kansas City Chiefs, the Pittsburgh Steelers are a bad matchup for the Kansas City Chiefs. We always seem to get the better of them. I don't know why. It's something schematically with our defense that always winds up exposing the Kansas City Chiefs. Not saying I'm not scared of Patrick Mahomes, because Patrick Mahomes is a different level quarterback than anybody else in this league. But with a Hall of Fame quarterback and our level of defense and health on our side, I really think we could beat both of them teams in the right situation. So thank you, Gotriots, for the questions. It says you think the Ravens will go 15-1. I'm gonna disagree with you on that one. I also don't think the Lamar Jackson will play all 16 games for Baltimore, which I said on our happy hour before. So. Okay, now we're talking Patriots on these questions. So, but I'll just throw this to you, Gotriots. Did the New England Patriots ever win a Super Bowl without having some sort of, fiasco attached to the year? Just going to leave it at that. So, New England, I got to tip the cap. Well played. You're always looking at it for advantage, but you've never really won a Super Bowl without having some sort of issue pop up either before or after, whether it was Deflategate, Spygate, whatever gate you want to call it. New England, just going to leave it at that. We won 6 Super Bowls legit. Just going to leave it. All right, Steeler Nation. We're going to our Week 3 preview quickly here. Sunday at 1 o'clock in Heinz Field, you'll see the Houston Texans visit this Pittsburgh Steelers in their home field. Right now, our injury report, we have no guys listed. We had a couple guys limited early this week. Deontay Johnson's nursing his toe injury that he's been dealing with throughout training camp. Also, Juju Smith-Schuster, he had a knee injury, kept him out completely until Friday, just managing reps, just trying to get him throughout the season without being too much injured. Excuse me. He's good to go right now. He posted a TikTok earlier dancing around and whatnot, doing his Juju thing. Tyson Alu missed some time, like I said, with a bone bruise on his knee. He's a full participant. He's back to normal. Also, J.C. Hassenauer, who's the backup center now because Wisniewski's out, popped up as a late addition on Thursday, I believe, with an ankle injury. So that's somebody to keep an eye on, especially with the depth in our offensive line kind of taking a hit in the first few weeks. But he's good to go. He wound up getting a full practice in Friday. Texans, on the other hand, have some guys that play key roles that are questionable at this point. Kenny Stills has been battling an illness. He's questionable this week. One of their top 3 targets. Duke Johnson, who had an ankle issue last game, he's questionable as well. Also, a guy that's not known by a lot of people outside the Houston followers, Peter Kalambayi. He was a Stanford product. He plays inside linebacker. He's a special teams force. He's also questionable with a hamstring injury. So that could maybe rear its head with a Ray McLeod or maybe a Deontay Johnson on return. Not so much on pure defense, but on special teams. So, going for our three stories of the week. If I don't mention this, I'm going to get beat up by Steeler Nation or probably mass media. The Watt reunion. It's the family reunion. And please, I know we're not allowed to have fans at the stadium, but please, somebody give the Watt family, the mom and dad, a chance to sit in a box and watch this game. It's the first time that they've ever seen all three of their boys on the same field. So please make that happen, Rooney family. If you're not allowed to have anything else, give them a credential. They've never played on a field like that all together in their football careers. But it's kind of funny. This is only the second time it's ever happened in the NFL since 1927. Does anybody remember the other incident? Oh, yeah, it also happened with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They love bloodlines, folks. And that's 2019. The Edmonds brothers, Trey, Terrell, and also Tremaine, played on the same field at the same time. So a little bit of interesting history. The Steelers seem to like bloodlines here. Hopefully, maybe down the road we can get a JJ appearance in black and gold. Will that into appearance? So that's our first storyline. Our second one, the All-Pro and Pro Bowler, David DeCastro, is back and healthy at right guard. Not saying Kevin Dotson did a bad job at right guard last game, but it's nice to have Mr. DeCastro back there beside his running mate Marquise Pouncey. Then our third storyline, does Deshaun Watson have the weapons to beat the Steelers? They're kind of showing their warts since they got rid of Nuck Hopkins in a trade for David Johnson to the Arizona Cardinals. It was mostly, I don't want to say a salary dump, but it was because Nuck Hopkins wanted an extension of a certain amount. I'm not so sure they did enough to replace him. They brought in Brandon Cooks, who's a speed merchant. If they like throwing the deep ball, that's going to be, he is one of their leading receivers this year, Brandon Cooks. He's always had an issue staying healthy, though, with concussions and hamstring injuries. Don't want to curse him, but Cooks always seems to get nicked, as well as one of their other guys, Will Fuller the fifth. Always seems to be on the injury report, a la James Conner. Kenny Stills, we talked about. Illness, is he going to be 100%? Don't know. Jordan Aiken's been making some impressive plays after the catch for the Texans this year. The big tight end. Also, we all know Darren Fells. He's the touchdown maker last year for him in Deshaun Watson. And David Johnson, I've been impressed with his running style. He looks healthy now after coming from Arizona. This is a guy who was... So Deontay Johnson will be a key factor in this game in the matchup. Deontay Johnson's run after the catch ability is one of the reasons why he needs to be making plays, whether it's on Lonnie Johnson Jr. or Bradley Roby. And Bradley Roby has been playing very good football since they brought him in a few years ago. He's a former first-round pick of the Broncos. Deontay Johnson needs a big game after the catch here. So Deontay Johnson versus Bradley Roby is the first matchup. The second one is Minkah Fitzpatrick, who's another guy I called out earlier in the episode, versus Deshaun Watson. The chess match will be going on. And Minkah, I need you to come down with some sort of turnover, whether it's a forced fumble after the catch or an interception on this, because our front seven should be getting some pressure. You should be able to get an errant pass here this week. Final matchup, the man, the myth, the Watt brother of the week, T.J. Watt versus Titus Howard. Titus Howard is a big-time athlete from Alabama State at right tackle. He had a knee injury last year. He's continually evolving into this offense and transitioning to the NFL level against these caliber pass rushers. This is why they selected him, to go up against toe-to-toe with guys like T.J. Watt. He's simply not in the same class, so T.J. Watt should roast Titus Howard. With his hand-fighting ability alone, he will struggle with Titus Howard. Titus Howard will not be able to combat the physical pass-rushing moves and tenacity that T.J. Watt brings to the table, let alone Laramie Tunsil, who's the better tackle against Bud Dupree on the other side. Oh, yeah, and by the way, we have Alu, Hayward, Tewart, Vince Williams, Devin Bush coming up the middle. So, too many litany of pass rushers, but specifically T.J. Watt versus Titus Howard as one of the key matchups. So, 3 things the Steelers must do to get the W this week. How do we get that dub, Pittsburgh? First, reduce penalties. Can't have 10 penalties for almost 90 yards Mike Tomlin is already on this. He brought referees to practice this week to address this situation. Excuse me. And I believe this will take care of itself. I don't think we'll see past four penalties this week. Second, defense must get turnovers, not just sacks and pressures. I love the numbers as the pressure game, but we need to see that turnover rate keep ticking up and up. We get this much pressure, we should be getting turnovers. So, Minka, I'm looking at you. I want you, Joe Hayden, Nelson, Edmonds, Mike Hilton, Sutton, whoever it may be. I want to see an INT and some forced fumbles this week. Finally, the wide receivers. Third, the wide receivers must win after the catch. Not only make big plays down the field, but specifically like Deontay Johnson, James Washington, that's a force after the catch with his power. I want to see you guys, Juju Smith-Schuster, running those crosser routes. You can really expose some of the ability of those outside linebackers that are going downhill. They have very rangy inside linebackers in Benardrick McKinney and Zach Cunningham, but you guys can outrun them. We need to see you win after the catch to win this game. So, my prediction, Steeler Nation, Pittsburgh Steelers 26, Houston Texans 17. Pittsburgh Steelers 26, Houston Texans 17. That's my prediction. We'll be 3-0 for one of the first times, I believe, since 2010. So that's what we're looking forward to, Steeler Nation. I'm still looking. I haven't got a big enough response yet, followers. You can hit me up on Steel City Sermon, at Steel City Sermon, or at Preacher Boy Roy. I ain't giving away the Steelers team PDF yet. You guys got to come and get it. You want it? Come and get it. I want you to subscribe to the Blitzalytics YouTube channel and then hit me up on Twitter, whether it's at Preacher Boy Roy or at Steel City Sermon. We'll give away a free team PDF when I get enough exposure here. So I'm going to keep throwing that out until we get enough exposure, and I'll be giving one of them away of this awesome product, the Prospect Encyclopedia. It is an amazing piece of work, especially in this season with all the pandemic and whatnot, with the players and the injuries. You're going to be getting those players that you need to focus on and get to know, and it's just a great resource. You want to go out and get yourself either a hard copy, full PDF, or a team-by-team PDF. It's worth it. It's definitely worth it. The link is in the description of this box as well. As I said, you can hit me up at Steel City Sermon. That's the show's Twitter page. Also at Preacher Boy Roy is my own. And as always, guys, stay humble, be a blessing. Go Steelers.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
Pittsburgh do this all the time. I've been playing them for 13 years. When you avoid the middle, they go into the middle. It's never changed.
I'm in fear for my life from the long arm of the law.